Let me tell you about an experience I had at a school in Zambia in Southern Africa. A privileged school with all the bells and whistles. Beautiful classrooms, well-resourced. The kindergarten had a playground full of beautiful big toys, expensive tricycles, everything designed for inquiry-based learning, for interaction, for communication, and of course for safety. The teachers at the school organized an exchange with a severely impoverished kindergarten, not far away in the rural countryside. This kindergarten had very little. A few mud huts, minimal furniture, no resources. The playground was just endless bush. Most of the time the kids spent visiting there from the privileged school, they were outside playing with new friends. When they came back to their privileged school, the headmaster asked them how it was. Their response? "They've got such a big playground, we want that too." They didn't care about their expensive toys. What they appreciated was the abundance of space to run and play, as opposed to their boxed-in, safe playground. That kind of experience gets me thinking about the whole meaning of privilege. There's so many shades of privilege. Some people will consider it a privilege to drive a Bentley. Others, the fact that they can afford dental insurance or a meal out. To many people in this world, it would be a privilege to be able to express their political and religious beliefs freely. I've been to African villages where the locals will tell you how privileged they are because they have a well in the middle of the village that will supply everybody with drinking water. We can't just look at privilege in terms of money or material possessions. We mustn't think of it dualistically, all or nothing. Instead, we should be thinking of it, we should be cultivating some sense of gratitude for what we have and looking at it in a more global perspective. Every child grows up with a reality that is shaped by their environment, their culture. My reality growing up happened to have given me a huge head start in life. My privileges included food security, the fact that I'm white male, that I grew up in a loving home surrounded by adults who fed my confidence. My education all the way through university was an expectation. My privilege even included the fact that my parents got upset if I scored poorly on a mathematics test. I also happened to have spent most of my professional life working in schools that catered to predominantly privileged families. Should this be seen as a perpetuation of exclusivism and elitism? Is it something I should feel guilty about? No, not at all. I believe we can only address inequality in this world with an honest accounting of our own individual privileges. We can't deny our place in society. It's what we do with a privilege that matters. What in the world has made you privileged, has given you a head start in life? Think about that. Honesty and clarity about the privileges we are fortunate enough to enjoy is the first step towards empathy. Where better to begin these conversations than in schools? Of course, no child, especially teenagers, wants to hear about how privileged they are. My dad's voice still rings in my ear. "Ooh, you don't know how lucky you are, and when I was your age." So let's do things differently. Let's make gratitude and reflection a part of daily conversations in schools. Let's open up new visions of systems underlying our society. Money, race, gender, power, wealth. These are not inviolable eternal truths. These are man-made, flawed concepts that can and should be challenged and that can change. The younger we begin this process of introspection and realization, the better the future looks. Let's talk in schools about a commitment to ending extreme inequality. Let's contrast our own privilege against the fact that everyone in this world deserves economic security, safety, and opportunity. And let's recognize that if a single person's circumstances of birth deny them that opportunity, then we have a moral and political imperative to push for change. We live in a world where 26 people own 50% of the world's wealth. Surely that's not right. A world in which natural resources are being squandered at the expense of millions of lives. That's not sustainable. And it is precisely this concept of sustainability that we can use as a vehicle to start conversations and to raise awareness. Sustainability is all about our community in the context of greater humanity. It's about a viable livelihood for all human beings. It's about sharing this precious planet of ours. In schools, we need to be asking enduring philosophical questions. What is the good life? How do we create a better world? What privileges am I growing up with? How do I widen my circle of empathy beyond my family, my community, my tribe, my bubble? Such conversations need to be pervasive in schools. Now, I know much is already being done in schools. In my experience in international schools worldwide, I've seen some fabulous projects, often based on very strong philosophical tenets that do a lot of this awareness raising. The problem is they are often individual, localized projects started off by a passionate persons or a group of people, usually adults. We need more student-initiated, student-led action. Throughout history, we've seen a lot of cases of very effective student activism. Think of the recent Swedish teenager, Greta Thunberg, who skipped school to raise attention to climate change. I'm old enough to remember the 1976 Soweto uprisings in South Africa, where school kids walked out of the classroom to protest against the gutter education they were receiving, which their parents had so sadly grown to accept. They paved the way for generations to come. But I'm also old enough to know that adults don't always know best. Part of my privilege is my age, my professional status, my financial security. I'm a voter who politicians appeal to. I have a vested interest in the status quo. But that's the wrong way round. It is a system that is rigged against young people and their idealistic, clear-eyed view of life. We adults, we need to step down from our perches of high privilege. None of us has the right to speak out against actions and voices like those of Greta. When Greta and her peers walk out of the classroom to protest against something that directly affects their future, it's not our place to tell them to sit down and keep quiet, and far less so to accuse them of insolence, because, that's what a lot of adults said to them. No, we should be cheering them from the rooftops. We should be clearing the streets and allow them to pass. We need to feed their idealism by giving them the facts and figures that will make them informed and help them shape a vision for a sustainable future. So where should schools begin this process? How about using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a basis for discussion? These 17 goals, developed in 2015, are all about the survival of the planet and of our society. We're talking quality education, water resources, clean energy, gender equality, and a whole lot more. Make these sustainable development goals an issue in school. Make them part of conversations in classrooms. Bring them into the curriculum. Have them visible throughout the corridors of the school. Bring them up at school gatherings. Create a sense of urgency. How about starting off every school day with a fact that gets sent out to every classroom, like the one I just mentioned, about 26 people owning 50% of the world's wealth? Or the fact that 1/3 of the food that is produced for human consumption goes to waste every year. This will get students talking. Let them talk. Let them come up with solutions. Adults, be the ones to feed the information. but then let the students run with it. It's precisely because there aren't yet cogs in the system that they have something valuable to say and that they need to be heard. Young people need to know that they are never too young to put things on the political agenda. And they also need to know that in taking on these challenges, they are not alone. Clearly, not all students will grow up to be sustainability activists. But this kind of program will create an awareness that is critical. And more so, some of them will take it to the streets and they will disrupt conventional thinking. And that is what this world needs. Don't let them grow up to be mini us's. We kept too quiet. We took our privilege for granted. We messed up this planet. Give them the tools to help them shape their own secure future. Help them recognize that actually the right to choose your own path is probably your ultimate privilege.